look over there!
Look over there!
And so the man in black turns around and Vicini switches the goblets. The man in black says, you chose wrong. I switched the cups. You can't go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. Hi everybody, Happy New Year! If you are new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. This is Robin Reads It for Phil, where I compare a book and a movie or series, and we have a time. So I'm hoping that 2026 is going to be better for us all than 2025. Speaking of 2025, one of the things that it took from us was the incomparable Rob Reiner. Now, Rob Reiner is a prolific director and producer who more or less colored my entire childhood. So when I heard of his tragic passing, I was devastated, and I thought that I would pay tribute in my own way by reviewing a movie that I did not know was based on a book, The Princess Bride. So The Princess Bride has been one of my favorite movies for decades. My first exposure to it when I was at summer camp. We put it on as a play and I played Buttercup. Looking back on it, I think that it wasn't that appropriate for a 10-year-old, but there's a kid in the movie, so it's fine. This movie has a star-studded cast, and not in the School for Good and Evil kind of way. Andre the Giant, Mandy Patinkin, Billy Crystal, and much more. It is a fairy tale love story between Buttercup and Wesley, who, against all odds, try to make their way back to each other. So, spoilers ahead. I don't usually spoiler alert, but we're going to talk about the plot. So, spoilers for the movie and the book if we continue. But if you're ready, here is The Princess Bride by William Goldman. William Goldman actually worked on the script, which explains a lot. Do some ASMR again. So, a boy is sick in bed and his grandfather has come to visit him and has brought him a book. They never named the grandfather, so I'm going to call him Gramps. The kid, who also has no name, so I'm going to call him Timofrey, asks his grandfather if there are any sports in the book. Fencing, fighting, torture, revenge, giants, monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles. This book has a lot of interjections in it. It's kind of the shtick of the book and the movie. The book, The Princess Bride, in the canon of the story was written by someone named S. Morgenstern, who does not exist. William Goldman, the author of the book, is pretending to be someone who's abridging the story. So he enters in the story every once in a while to tell us where he changes certain parts, his thoughts on a lot of the story elements. The grandfather and the kid are supposed to be a placeholder for Goldman and his father. This whole thing has got a very like Alexander Pope, the Dunciad kind of feel, where he's interjecting himself into the story that he himself wrote as though he didn't write it. Brilliant. In the book, it is him and his father versus the child and his grandfather. So it is time to start the actual story of The Princess Bride. There was a young woman named Buttercup. Her favorite thing to do was to boss around her farmhand named Wesley. I have now primed my face 3 times because the first one was itchy, and the second 2 times I had something in the shot. I'm not doing it again, but suffice it to say, prime your face. Robin Wright as Buttercup, and a then relevant Carrie Elways plays Wesley. So Wesley, every time he was asked by Buttercup to do something, he would always respond with, "As you wish." And she discovered one day that when he was saying "as you wish," he was really saying "I love you." And one day she realized that she truly loved him back. Timofrey is like, wait a second, is this a kissing book? When is it going to get good? There's going to be a lot of interjections from Timofrey, so you're going to have to get used to him. Wesley has no money for marriage, so he packs up his things to seek his fortune across the sea. In the book, this part is very abrupt. It's a lot different. Buttercup only shows interest in Wesley when Count Rugen and his wife come to visit the farm. Rugen hears about Buttercup's beauty, so presumably he's visiting so that he can maybe report back to Prince Humperdinck, who we will meet in a bit. He brings his wife, who takes an immediate interest in Wesley. And Buttercup is jealous. So as she starts to grapple with her own feelings of jealousy, she realizes that she loves Wesley and goes to tell him, and then he slams the door in her face. So the next day, Wesley comes to visit her and says that he loves her too, and therefore he is leaving because he needs to make his money if he wants to marry her someday. They don't even really get any chance to like be together, to love each other. He just kind of disappears right away. There's like no buildup, just I love you, I'm leaving. And he's also like super condescending to her. I'm going for a Princess Bride kind of look if you're not, if that hasn't become clear. So back to the movie. Buttercup says that she is worried that something will happen to Wesley when he goes across the sea. And he says he will always come for her. And it is revealed that Wesley's ship almost immediately gets attacked by pirates and he is murdered. Murdered by pirates is good. Turns out that Wesley's ship was attacked by the Dread Pirate Roberts, who it is known from miles around that he does not take survivors. When Buttercup discovers that Wesley has been killed, she is inconsolable.
I will never love again.
5 years later, and the Prince of Florin, which is where this story takes place primarily, is introducing his betrothed to the people. It turns out that he is betrothed to Buttercup. So Prince Humperdinck is played by the same dude who plays Jack Skellington in A Nightmare Before Christmas, which you have no way of really knowing because it's just his voice, but I think it's funny. So it is stated that because he's the prince, he more or less can ask, and by ask I mean demand, anyone to be his wife. And so he demanded that Buttercup be his wife, and it is really clearly stated that she does not love him. I am using the Grinch Stole Christmas palette because I was going to use it for my Christmas video. And I filmed an entire video on Die Hard, which maybe one day I will redo. But what ended up happening is the mic wasn't on. So it was completely unusable. In the book, she refuses to marry him and even says, "You can kill me if you want to." And he goes, "Really? Do you think marrying me is that bad?" And she goes, "No, I just think that marriage is for people who are in love, and I don't love you." And he goes, "Who said anything about love? You never have to love me, but I will take good care of you." And so she's convinced, and she decides to agree. Back to the movie. Buttercup is on her daily ride, and she is stopped by 3 men. Fezzik, who is played by Andre the Giant. In the book, Fezzik was Turkish, not French. Vizzini, played by Wallace Shawn. And Inigo, played by Mandy Patinkin. Now, it should be noted that Mandy Patinkin is not Latinx. He is not Spanish or Latin in any way. He is an Ashkenazi Jew whose family is from Poland. I mean, it is 1988, so it's not that uncommon for the time, but it is not great. I do love Mandy Patinkin on his take on human rights. I strongly suggest you take a look at that. He uses his Princess Bride platform still to this day to talk to us about things that he finds important, and I just love that. So Vizzini is clearly the leader, and he is a little weasel. He puts an emblem of Gilder, the country across the sea, on Buttercup's horse, so that people will think that they are the ones that captured her, because he, as he reveals, has been paid to start a war. They plan to kill her. Fezzik and Inigo both agree that they don't want to kill anybody, but Vizzini kind of tears them a new asshole, so they let it go. But to pick up their spirits, Inigo and Fezzik start playing rhyming games, which is also in the book. I'm glad that they kept it.
No more rhymes now, I mean it! Anybody want a peanut?
They start to sail away with Buttercup, and Inigo notices that they are being followed. And Vizzini thinks that that is inconceivable. While they go to take a look, Buttercup jumps overboard and starts to swim away. But unfortunately for her, the shrieking eels are in that area, and they start to come at her very quickly. Gramps makes sure to tell Timofrey
she doesn't get eaten by the eels at this time,
because he looks really nervous. And this part is also in the book. They pull her out and save her. Inigo mentions that they are still being followed But Vicini says, no worries, because we've already reached the cliffs of insanity and he won't be able to dock. Fezzik ties them all to himself and starts to climb, and they see that not only has the ship docked, but there is a man in black who is following after them. So they climb up the rope and Vicini cuts it, but the man in black is still on the cliffs.
Inconceivable! You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
So Vicini tells Inigo, if he falls, fine. If not, the sword. Inigo is waiting for the man in black to climb up, but he is getting impatient. So he offers to lower down the rope so that the man in black can come up faster. And he says, how do I know that you're not going to drop me to my death? So Inigo comes to the edge and says, I swear on the soul of my father, Domingo Montoya, you will make the top alive.
Throw me the rope.
So while the man in black empties the boulders from his boots, Inigo asks him whether he has 6 fingers on his right hand. He does not. Then Inigo tells the story of his father, who was a master sword maker, who had a 6-fingered man come and ask him to make him a sword. And then once it was ready, he offered to pay only 1/10 of the price. When his father refused, the 6-fingered man killed him. Inigo challenged him to a sword fight and lost, and so the man cut his face on either side. He has been looking for the man ever since, and when he finds him, he will say, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Now, this part in the book, we actually get to sort of see what happens. We live it through it with Inigo. So basically, after this happens in the book, Inigo becomes a prolific sword fighter, but when he's not able to find the 6-fingered man, he starts to sword fight people for money. But he is like One Punch Man, so he is able to defeat everyone that comes his way, and he is bored and he is upset, so he turns to alcohol. Vicini finds him in the thieves' forest, drunk out of his mind on wine, and gives him a job. I'm gonna go for this like blushing bride type, princess bride kind of thing. I hope this will come out nice. I think it will. So the man in black and Inigo start to sword fight. Now, what's interesting about this sword fight is that when they originally choreographed it, they did not have enough to fit the dialogue. So they had to add all this extra stuff to this already incredibly complicated fight scene in order for all the dialogue to fit in. What's also interesting is that they are talking about different sword fighting techniques, and those are actual sword fighting techniques that they are discussing, like Agrippa and Capoferro and things like that. They're not using them as they're talking, but those are real sword fighting techniques that they're discussing, and it's the same in the book. So it looks like the man in black is starting to win, but it turns out that Inigo was faking being left-handed. Okay, I'm going to blend this out. So then he changes hands and starts to win. But then we find out that the man in black is also not left-handed and switches to his right. So the man in black wins, and rather than killing Inigo, he just knocks him out. So Vicini sees that the man in black has defeated his sword fighter.
Inconceivable!
So he tells Fezzik to hide behind a boulder, and when the man in black shows up, to beat him to death with a rock. Fezzik, having more sportsmanship than that, decides to throw a rock at the man in black's head, but misses on purpose. He tells the man in black that they should both put down their weapons and just fight it out hand to hand. So, not really having much of a choice, that's what the man in black does. As they're fighting, it turns out that Fezzik is not used to fighting people one at a time. He is a lot more used to fighting groups of people. And when you fight people in groups, there's a lot different moves that you use. So he's having actually a lot of difficulty. So the man in black is actually able to choke out Fezzik, checks to make sure that he's alive.
Dream of large women.
So he catches up to Vicini, who is holding a knife to Buttercup's throat. And Vicini says that if he comes any closer, he will kill her. So they're at an impasse because the man in black is much more physically adept than Vicini, but Vicini says that the man in black is no match for his brains. So the man in black makes him a deal and says, okay, well, let's have a battle of wits. Vicini is so down for this. So what happens is he tells Vicini to pour the wine, and he pulls out a container of odorless, tasteless poison called iocane, which I don't think it really exists. He says that he is going to pour the iocane powder into one of their glasses, and Vicini has to figure out which one. He chooses, they both drink, and they find out who is right and who is dead. So Vicini starts to reason what he knows about the man in black, taking lots of different factors into account, but eventually it seems that he is just stalling so that the man in black will give something away. Vicini eventually says, look over there! Look over there!
Look over there!
And so the man in black turns around and Vicini switches the goblets and says, all right, let's both drink from our own cups. They both drink. The man in black says, you chose wrong. And then Vicini says, I switched the cups. You can't go against a Sicilian when death is on the line. It turns out that the man in black has been building up an immunity to iocane powder. The man in black unties Buttercup. Meanwhile, Prince Humperdinck is tracking the battles that the man in black has been having, and he is closing in on them. They take a break, and Princess Buttercup offers the man in black whatever he wants. And he says, what good is that, the promise of a woman? We're going to come back to this, because go to hell. So she says that there's no greater hunter than her fiancé. And he's like, oh, you're going to be rescued by your greatest love? And she's like, I never said he was my greatest love. And yes, he will find me. You admit you don't love your fiancé? He knows I don't love him. And the man in black accuses her of not being capable of love. Weird. She tells him that she is loved more deeply than a killer like him could ever dream. He goes to slap her, and he doesn't, but she recoils, and he's like, if you lie again, then I will let my hand fly. In the book, he actually does slap her. She goes, I know that you're the Dread Pirate Roberts. And he goes, that's me. And she says, you killed my true love. And he's like, possible? Who is he? And she describes him, and he goes, yeah, you know what? I think I do remember him. He said, please, please, I have true love to get back to, but I have a reputation to protect. So, you know, I can't just let people go willy-nilly because then it's going to be work, work, work all the time. And she gets upset. She's like, you're mocking my pain. Please stop mocking me. And then he's like, how long did you wait until your apparent true love died? Did you get engaged? A day? A week? And she goes, don't mock me again.
I died that day.
And then she pushes him down the ravine. But as he falls, he starts to call out, as you wish. Oh no, it's Wesley. And then she goes and jumps after him. And this tumble scene is so funny. We don't know who plays each of the stunt doubles, but it is theorized that both of the characters are played by the same stunt double, and you can totally tell that it's just some old guy. So Humperdinck has caught up with the two of them at the top of the ravine, and he says they're going to the fire swamp. Wesley asks Buttercup if she can move. Move? You're alive. If you want, I can fly. Let's try to do subtle eyebrows this time. I don't know how this is gonna go. Let's find out. So, okay. Let's take a second to discuss what just happened. This is Wesley, her true love, right? He was mocking her and threatening her back when he hadn't revealed himself. He could have just told her who he was right away, first of all. Second of all, he was dead. And he's mad that she didn't get her head cut off for saying no to the prince. And in the book, he fully slaps her. So like, am I supposed to like this guy? Because I sure as hell don't. So in the book, when they get to the bottom of the ravine, they immediately start fighting. He calls her stupid, and she's like, I'm not stupid. And he goes, oh yeah? What books have you read and when? Like, Wesley is a little shithead, and I do not like him, and you cannot convince me otherwise. I did it again. Ugh. Every time.
Every time.
Cousins, not siblings. One of these days I will get my eyebrows just right, but today is not that day. Back to the movie, he asks her why she got engaged to Humperdinck. And she's like, well, you were dead. And he goes, you think that can stop us? This is true love. I will always come for you. And she goes, I'll never doubt again. I mean, okay, but she still needed to live, my dude. Like, you never came back to her. She thought you were dead. You yourself left because you were trying to get riches and you didn't. And now you're surprised that she said yes to someone who would fully have killed her if she said no, but also is taking care of her. This movie is a perfect example of the difference between doing things for love and doing them with love. He left her for love. He went off and, was on the high seas for love. But if he had let her go, that would have been him doing something with love. Like he's doing it because that's the best thing for her, rather than sitting around pining thinking that he's dead. So they enter the fire swamp. The fire swamp is said to have 3 main dangers. Number 1, the fire spouts. Well, they spout fire. There is the lightning sand, which is way worse than quicksand. You step in it and then you disappear. And the third one is the ROUSs, which we will come back to. Wesley tells Buttercup that the Revenge, his ship, is on the other side of the fire swamp, so they'll be able to get through and escape. He says that he did plead for his life when he met Roberts, and Roberts decided to let him become his valet. So every night he would say, "Good night, Wesley. Sleep well. Good work. I'll most likely kill you in the morning." In the book, this is the same thing, except that Wesley makes himself useful very quickly in order for the Dread Pirate Roberts to see his value and not decide to kill him. Like, it's a lot more, he had to work at it rather than the Dread Pirate Roberts was just like, oh, true love. He wasn't allowed to tell anyone that he was alive because, again, the Dread Pirate Roberts has a reputation to maintain. After 3 years, the Dread Pirate Roberts tells Wesley that he is not actually the Dread Pirate Roberts. He inherited the title from someone who also was not the Dread Pirate Roberts, and so on and so forth. The real Dread Pirate Roberts was on a beach somewhere, retired for 15 years. So as he's explaining this, Buttercup falls into the lightning sand. And I remember this part being really harrowing in the book, where she tries to spread her arms out and tries not to open her mouth because the sand is getting everywhere, and how he jumps in and for a long time is not able to find her, and he brings a hand out, but it's like a skeleton hand, and he freaks out, but he is able to save her. In the play, we had this part of the stage where I would fall in and they would throw water on me and then flour, and then I would come out kind of all white. But one time they threw the flour first and I was covered in glue for the rest of the show. Glue? So Wesley's saying that Buttercup asks Wesley about the ROUSs, the rodents of unusual size. Wesley says he doesn't think that they exist and then gets attacked by one. He is able to defeat it though, but in so doing, he burns himself on one of the fire spouts. So they exit the fire swamp and Humperdinck and his men are there and they are surrounded. And Wesley refuses to surrender. He says that he would rather die. And at this point, Buttercup realizes that they're not going to escape. So she says, "Will you promise not to hurt him? If you promise to bring him back to his ship, I will come back to you. I will marry you. Everything will be fine." And Humperdinck promises that he will bring him back to his ship. But then he goes to Rugen and says to bring him into the pit of despair. So he goes off with Buttercup, and Rugen turns to Wesley and says, "Let's get you back to your ship." And Wesley says, "We are men of action. Lies do not become us."
Well spoken, sir.
So, okay, again, in the book, Wesley was like hell-bent on dying, and he got angry when Buttercup saved him. He was like, "You don't want to die with me?" No, I don't. I like with love, not for love. Oh, you know what? My love will be alive and she'll be living with somebody else, but she'll be taken care of. Not, hey, let's both die together like Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet was not, okay, I'm going to be doing Romeo and Juliet, I think. But Romeo and Juliet was not a love story. It was a tragedy. And I just don't understand you wanting to die and for your partner to die rather than being happy with somebody else. That doesn't make sense to me. Now we're in the pit of despair. In the book, it's called the Zoo of Death. A light-skinned man that they call the albino comes in and is starting to treat Wesley's wounds. I'm not going to call him the albino. I'm going to call him Randy. Count Rugen wants him to be at his best when he starts to torture him. So Randy says that he's going to plug him into the machine. Meanwhile, the king has died, and the day after, Humperdinck and Buttercup get married. So when she next speaks to her subjects, it's as their queen. Timothy's not happy with this. He goes, "What are you talking about, Grandpa? Read it right." In the book, he is upset and the dad doesn't read him anymore for an entire day. It's kind of cruel knowing that you know like what's coming up, but anyway. But when she goes to speak to them, there is this old woman who's yelling at her, booing, saying that she had true love and that she threw it away and that she's the queen of filth, the queen of putrescence. Incidentally, this is where I learned the word putrescence, but it turns out it was just a dream. And Timothy's like, "I knew she wouldn't have married Humperdinck." Yes, you're very smart. So Buttercup goes up to Humperdinck and says, "Listen, I can't marry you. I need to be with Wesley." And he says, "Okay, well, how about you write 4 copies of a letter? I'll send off my 4 fastest ships to try to find his ship. And if he doesn't come back before the wedding, we'll still get married. How about that?" And she says, "Okay." So Count Rugen and Humperdinck are talking in the woods, and it turns out that Humperdinck not only hired Vicini to kidnap and kill Buttercup, he is now planning to strangle her himself on their wedding night and blame Gilder so that they can go to war. In the book, the reason why he has friction with Gilder is because he was looking into marrying their princess, but when he found out that she was bald, he reacted very poorly. And since then, relations with Gilder have been really rocky. Count Rugen pushes a knot on a weird tree and a secret door opens towards the pit of despair. And he asks Humperdinck if he wants to come and join and watch.
"I've got my country's 500th anniversary to plan, my wedding to arrange, my wife to murder, and Gilder to frame for it. I'm swamped."
Here we go, the pit of despair. In the book, before we get to the machine, Count Rugen tortures Wesley in various ways, like hurting his body, but he is able to section his mind off and spend time in his mind with Buttercup, which actually is a technique used in the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. Count Rugen uses the machine on the lowest setting, which is setting number 1, and essentially he sucks 1 year of life out of Wesley. He asks Wesley how he feels, and Wesley starts to weep. Humperdinck tells his chief enforcer, Yellen,
I'm yelling!
that he has heard that there are assassins from Gilder who plan to kill the princess. And he says that he wants the thieves' forest completely emptied and everyone to be brought to jail on the day of the wedding. They do that. And they're able to arrest everyone except Inigo, who is completely drunk, who's sitting on one of the stoops saying that he's waiting for Vicini, because that's where they said that they would meet if the plan went wrong. As one of the brute squad is trying to take him, Fezzik knocks out the other guard and takes care of Inigo and tries to nurse him back to health. While he's doing that, he tells Inigo that Count Rugen is actually the six-fingered man. Now, they don't explain this in the movie or the book, but I'm pretty sure that because Fezzik is on the Brood Squad, he would have been in contact with Count Rugen and he would have seen the 6 fingers, but we never see it and we never question it. We just know that he's the 6-fingered man. He sobers Inigo up by dunking him into a bucket of hot water and then ice water and then hot water. Inigo asks what the situation is at the castle. And it turns out that there are 30 guards guarding the door. And he says that between the two of them, they can't take out 30. And they need someone to strategize. Inigo decides he's going to go find the man in black. So Yellen tells Humperdinck that the thieves' forest has been emptied and that he has the only key to the gate. Humperdinck tells him to double the amount of guards, which means that there are now 60 guards out front. Buttercup comes in and Humperdinck says that they are going to go on their honeymoon and that all the ships in the Armada are waiting to escort them. And she says, all but your 4 fastest, right? Right. And she realizes that he's been lying. And she says, it doesn't matter whether you sent the letters or not. My Wesley will come for me. And she calls him a coward. And he grabs her and throws her into her chambers before going down into the pit of despair. He turns the machine up to 50.
Got to 50!
And it kills Wesley. Before he dies, his scream pierces through the entire city and everybody hears it. So Inigo and Fezzik ambush Randy, but they knock him out before they find out where they can enter the pit of despair. Inigo calls to his father and asks for help, and his father is able to direct him towards the knot in the tree, and the door opens up for them. In the book, they enter the mouth of the Zoo of Death. There are 2 different entrances to the Zoo of Death. There is the entrance that is not guarded, and there is the one that's secret that can bring you all the way down to the 5th level, which is where Wesley is. But they enter through the mouth, and they have to go through and kill all these different animals that are deadly, poisonous, rabies-filled, until they're able to get to Wesley. But when they get there, Wesley's dead. Timothy is irate. He's like, what do you mean Wesley's dead? You're kidding, right? Okay, so who gets Humperdinck? Who kills him? Gramps says, Nobody kills him.
Jesus, Grandpa, what did you read me this thing for?
You want me to read this thing or not?
No, Grandpa, I don't. No kid wants to be read anything anymore.
So, Inigo and Fezzik take Wesley's dead body and go and knock on the door of Miracle Max. Miracle Max is played by the incomparable Billy Crystal. He mentions that the prince fired him and says, I don't know, I might kill the guy that you're going to miracle. Well, he's already dead. All right, bring him in. In the book, the king's death is kind of imminent, and it is insinuated that when the prince fires the Miracle Man and brings in a different one, that the king's health starts to decline rapidly, and so you start to wonder whether he did that on purpose because he wanted the king to die faster so that he could become king quicker. Miracle Max asks Inigo why they need the miracle, and he makes up some lie about having children who are hungry and a wife who is disabled. And so Miracle Max says, never mind, I'll ask him myself. What are you talking about? He's dead.
Your friend here is only mostly dead.
So he takes a bellows and puts it in his mouth and pushes on his chest and asks him what he has to live for. And he says, true love. Inigo goes, okay, well, true love. There's nothing more noble than that. No, he didn't say true love. He said to blave. Just then, Carol Kane comes out and she starts yelling at Miracle Max.
Pack witch!
I'm not a witch, I'm your wife.
In the book, her name's Valerie, by the way. She does not have a name in this. So Valerie says that he has lost his confidence because he was fired by Humperdinck. But Inigo says that if he brings this man back to life, he'll stop Humperdinck's wedding. And that is enough. That motivates him to help them. So they make a miracle pill and give it to them and say that they need to wait 15 minutes for it to work. In the book, they make a pill that only lasts for 40 minutes, and the whole rest of the book is paced out in minutes so that we can know how much time that Wesley has left. We don't know what's going to happen when the pill wears off. We don't know if he's going to die again. We don't know if he's just going to be very weak, but it's very tense, and this is like completely missing from the movie. Will he get to Buttercup in time? So they bring Wesley to the castle, give him the pill, and he comes to life immediately. He's able to quickly come up with a plan that involves Fezzik, a Holocaust cloak, a wheelbarrow. They put him on the wheelbarrow, and he says that he is the Dread Pirate Roberts, and he starts to threaten all of the people outside the gates. And then they set fire to his cloak so that he's just this tall giant on fire, threatening them in very garbled English. I could not understand a word he was saying. I did not know what he was saying until the DVD version came out and I could choose the subtitles. Everyone runs away except Yellen, who is still holding the key. They tell him to give them the key, and he refuses.
Basic. Tear his arms off.
Oh, you mean this gate key?
As this is going on, we are watching the most iconic wedding scene of all time, marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. As we are hearing the sounds of fighting outside, Count Rugen runs off, and Humperdinck starts to rush the priest. He gets the priest to say man and wife before either of them say their I do's, but he's like, okay, that's it, we're married. As Inigo, Fezzik, and Wesley come into the castle, Count Rugen and his guards stop them, but Inigo is able to incapacitate all of the guards very easily, and then he turns to Count Rugen and says, hello. My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. And Count Rugen dips. Count Rugen, in running away, locks the door behind him, and Inigo starts throwing himself against the door, but it's not working. So he says, Fezzik, come help me. And Fezzik's like, okay. So he puts Wesley on a suit of armor and then runs off to knock the door down. When he comes back, though, Wesley is gone. Inigo chases Count Rugen and then corners him, but Count Rugen throws a knife and hits him right in the guts. Buttercup, now in the honeymoon suite on her own, pulls out a knife and places it on her heart, but Wesley stops her. She embraces him, but he can't really move. You know what? Some people are into that. Inigo, hurt, bleeding, lying on the floor, apologizes to his father for not being able to go through with his revenge. But when Rugen comes to stab him, he reflexively stops him and then starts to get his strength back. And then he says, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. He starts to regain his strength. He's holding on to his wound. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Stop saying that!
So they continue to fight, and he disarms Rugen and brings the sword right to his throat. Offer me money. Power 2, promise me that. Yes, everything I have. Offer me all I want. Anything you want.
I want my father back, you son of a bitch.
And then he kills Count Rugen. Andy Patinkin, who plays Inigo Montoya, in this scene, he had just lost his father. The actor had lost his father recently. And so when he says, I want my father back, he has the emotion of a son who has just lost his father. In the book, Inigo cuts out Count Rugen's heart because that's what he essentially did to him. And he killed his father. So back to Buttercup and Wesley. She apologizes saying that she got married. And he goes, no, you didn't. And she says, yes, there was a priest and everything. Did you say I do? No, I skipped that part. Well, then you didn't do it. In the book, the rationale is, oh, well, we're going to make you a widow, so it's not going to matter anyway. I like this better. Humperdinck bursts in and he challenges Wesley to the death, but Wesley says no to the pain. And then he describes all of these things that he is planning on doing to Humperdinck if he wins the sword fight. He is going to lop off certain body parts and he's going to disfigure him, and it's very gruesome. And Humperdinck says that he's bluffing, but then he gets up out of the bed and tells him to drop his sword. So Humperdinck drops his sword. Then he tells Buttercup to tie up Humperdinck.
Make it as tight as you like.
Oh.
In the book, he's like, woman, do as you're told. Go tie him up. What is happening? I hate it. Wesley sucks. So as they're tying up Humperdinck, Inigo meets with them, and then Wesley starts to lose his strength, and they hear Fezzik at the window. They go to the window, and Fezzik says, hey, I was at the stables, and I found these 4 horses. And Inigo says, Fezzik, you did something right, which I take umbrage with. Like, I feel like he's been doing things right for a good part of the movie. In the book, I prefer the book version. They say, oh, Fezzik, you thought for yourself. I think that's way better. Inigo says that he doesn't know what to do with his life now that he's no longer taking revenge. And Wesley says he would make a wonderful Dread Pirate Roberts. They jump out the window and ride the 4 horses to safety. There's one final kiss scene, which Timofrey doesn't seem to mind so much anymore. That is the end of the book. Gramps says, you should go to bed now. And he's leaving the room, and Timofrey says, do you think you can come back and read me the book again another time? And Gramps says, as you wish. Get it? Because they love each other. Okay, so a couple things. The movie does not end the same way as the book. In the book, it's a lot more ambiguous as to whether they're actually going to get away. There's also a chapter of a second book that doesn't really exist that kind of talks about them going to an island and Buttercup giving birth to a baby and then someone stealing the baby. Fezzik jumps off a cliff to save the baby and we don't know if he survives. It's a bummer. My final thoughts, Wesley sucks. He does things for love and not with love, and I think that ultimately can't make him a hero that I can get behind. In my opinion, the real love story in this movie is Inigo and his father. That is the love story. Overall, Rob Reiner did an excellent job adapting this movie. The fact that the same author was part of the writing of the script, I think, made a big difference. And I think that other directors who decide to adapt things should take that into consideration. Looking at you, M. Night Shyamalan. The story and the movie could really use some Bechdel infusion. There's not a lot of women, and the ones who are in there don't have names. Even if they have names in the book, they don't have names in the movie. And there is a shocking lack of melanin. I would have liked to have seen actual people of color, maybe an actual Turkish person playing Fezzik, maybe an actual Spaniard playing the Spaniard. I don't really have a lot to say about the death of Rob Reiner other than the fact that it's an absolute tragedy. And I will always treasure his movies, regardless of, how flawed a lot of them are, just by virtue of them being from the 80s and 90s, but I will always, always appreciate him for that. Let me know what you think of my final look, and did you read the book? Did you think that it was as good as the movie? Have you seen the movie? If you haven't, why not go watch it? So everyone, thank you so much again for tuning in. This is going to be a great year. I can feel it. And until next time, be queer, read books. Bye. And he tells her that the way that he becomes, and you're, damn it. Rawr. But suffice it to say, you should prime your face. Oh, damn it. Woo. That's way too much. Under eye. Also, at this point in the book, once they fall down the ravine, oh, it looks so pretty. Oh my God.